Hello. Am I? Oh, I am going. All right, good. Hello. This is Marc Sabatella, Director of Education for MuseScore, coming to you with this week's MuseScore Café. Today is February 20th, 2019, and as I put in the description of what I want to do today, my main topic that I want to talk about is just entering music from that you already have, like in a PDF or printed. And if you just want to enter that music, and I just want to go through the process of doing that. So that's the main thing that I'm here to talk about. As always, those of you who are tuned in live, if you have questions, feel free to post. And I'm again want to test my sound there. Okay, I'm good. So I'm just going to start doing things. I'm going to talk while I do it, and anything that comes up in the process, I'm just going to try to remember to say what I'm talking about. So the first thing that I need to mention is that when I am entering music into MuseScore from a PDF or something, I personally don't try to have the PDF on screen. I usually try, hey, good morning, everyone, or those of you for whom it's morning. I know those of you in Europe, it's already evening. Anyhow, I don't usually try to have the music on screen because, well, that just takes up screen space. But if I have it just sitting next to me printed, which is what I would normally do, or maybe have it, I have a Kindle and I can view it on my Kindle or something. If I do that, it can be hard, well, you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do something here that I wouldn't necessarily do in, real life, which is just kind of size my windows so that I can see both MuseScore and my PDF at once. I am not going to claim that this is ideal, but it's what I think we're going to be working with. And I'm still going to let them overlap a little bit so I can just switch between the windows as far as which one's on top. So anyhow, that's something that I'm going to do. Hey, oh wow, Trinidad and Tobago. That's great. This is a score. So probably, I don't know if he's watching, but my brother Matthew is a very, very fine musician. Has a whole amazing thing he does with American folk music, and but he also works in a school district. And one of the teachers there, if I'm understanding correctly, had some music they wanted into MuseScore that they had a PDF of, and there is an experimental PDF import service. I say experimental. That's a little bit unfair. I mean, it uses, if you go in MuseScore to File, Import PDF, it's going to send you to the MuseScore.com website and allow you to try to import a PDF file. There's a number of limitations to how that works and some issues with how that's working currently that need to be worked out. But to be fair, the program that it actually uses is a separate program, another open source program called Autoverus. And if you install Autoverus on your own computer and run it yourself, you'll find that actually it's capable of doing a much, much better job than the automated service. And that's because once it imports a PDF, it does its best to show you what it recognized and then lets you kind of edit things right there within Autoverus. And someday, maybe when I really learn how to do that, I will maybe demo that. I got a brief kind of introduction to it when I was in Brussels, whenever that was, a couple of weeks ago, and met the creator of Autoverus. That is an option, and you can get better results that way, and it will work around the glitches that cause the import to completely fail sometimes. There are third-party programs that do this. So, okay, Marcus, you say you do this all the time with windows side by side. So, like, I have them up and down like this, but you're saying that you like it better side by side. Is it possible that your screen, though, is also wider than mine? Because I know some laptops or some monitors are widescreen. I kind of feel like I'm going to do a better job with it this way. So I'm going to go with what I think works for me. But I am a little curious. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to start entering some music. So the first thing that I'm going to do is think about, do I want to just use this default score here, or do I want to actually create one? This is a viola part. I think I'm just going to, since Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new score for viola, just because. No really good reason for it. So choose instruments only so that you can see that you're not limited to starting with that default score and then tweaking it. And a lot of us, including myself, are kind of in the habit of doing that, but it's not necessarily the best way to do things. So if I go to viola here, it's going to set up some things for me automatically. What it didn't give me, because I forgot to enter it, was the title and all that information. So actually, let me close that and just do that again. So again, this time I'm going to give it the title. And Telemann Sinfonia, I think it's actually pronounced, but I'm not even sure about that. So I enter a title. I'm going to skip some of the other stuff and just put George Philip Telemann as the composer. We can always Georg, like in Sound of Music. Philip Telemann. So you can enter all this information later if you want, but I figure I'll get this much in there, and I can add the information about the arranger and so forth if I want also. All right, so choose instruments, and I will go to viola. There we go. All right, so here's my starting point, and I am now, since this is actually the part, I think, from a whole orchestra arrangement, that's why we're seeing the part name here. We wouldn't normally see a part name, but I can add one. If I right-click here, I can say Add Part Name, and that allows me to add some text for the part name. All right. Now, I am not going to be worried about copying the exact formatting of things, like the fact that this font is, oh, that's well, that's all caps. I suppose I could have done that, or that this viola is kind of lined up with that. I'm just entering the information, and I'm mostly going to go with default formatting. So that's like a personal choice. Excuse me. So that's just how I tend to do things. If it was that important to copy the exact formatting, I would deal with that later. But I'm more about getting the information in here first. Now this here, I don't even know what this is. This is some sort of catalog number. So if I want to add that on the assumption that that has some importance, I'm going to go and I'm going to insert a horizontal frame here. And in that horizontal frame, I will add text. And that's P, that's an O, I guess, not a 0. I don't know. Is that a 0 or an O? How do you know? I was thinking about that looking at license plates the other day. And now I will double click this thing and extend it a little bit. I guess that's something that if we wanted to improve autoplay some, we could try to make it expand horizontal frames to contain the text. Yeah, that's either P0196 or PO196, but whatever. All right, so the next thing I noticed is in my haste to just create this score, I didn't get a time signature in there, and so I really missed the opportunity to enter that 3-2 most directly, but that's okay. Some people, it's a 0. All right, then I will edit this to say 0. Thanks. Here we go. All right, so had I been slowing down when I created the score, I could have told it 3-2 was my time signature, but that's okay. I can add the time signature later, even though it's not in my default palette. And by the way, I'm in a custom workspace that I created. By default, you're in this basic workspace. I'm going to switch to the advanced workspace, which is something that everyone has access to. But even here, you'll see there's no 3-2 by default. But what I can do is I can press Shift-T, which is the shortcut for the time signatures palette. And if you don't want to remember that, it's under View, Master Palette, and then you select time signatures over here. So at this point, I can create a new time signature, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to create one that is 3 and 2. And I'm going to think about my note groupings because it's going to give me the opportunity. And it looks like it's doing something semi-reasonable by default. But if I look at what's in the original, I think I want to reproduce that. Whoa. Oh, it changes to 4/4. I was looking at this going, wait a minute, these are four groups of eighth notes. So it's only 3/2 for a little while, but that's okay. So I'm still going to need this time signature, and I'll just let it be beamed this way since I'm not actually going to need any eighth notes at all while I'm in there. But this will give me an opportunity to kind of customize the beaming. So 3/2, and now I can just add this to my score, and I've got my 3/2. So, sometimes when I'm entering notes, I might want to set up some of the formatting first as far as like where this double bar is and where that changes to 4/4. You don't have to, but I think I'm going to. 1, 2, 3, 4 measures worth of 3/2, and then it changes to 4/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 measures of 3/2, then it changes to 4/4. So right here. So I've got my 4/4 there, and there's a double bar there. So I'm going to switch over to the bar lines palette and enter my double bar. Drag and drop is not normally how I add things, but for some reason I tend to do that during these demos. But more often I would be selecting the bar line and then double clicking in the palette. But either way works. All right. I'm assuming this tempo marking is meant to be Largo, and so I'm going to get that in there. I'm just setting up some things. So what is it? Shift-Alt-T. Shift-Alt-T. So I can enter a tempo marking, and by default, Shift-Alt-T enters a tempo marking, and I can pick what I want it to be, and I might make it be 60. You can also go to the tempo palette and find all these markings there already. So since Largo is already there, let me just select this and double click Largo. So now I get a Largo. This is actually new in 3.0, and I don't know exactly how it's going to interpret Largo in 3.2. I might need to customize this for playback, but we'll worry about that later. At the 4/4, it's going to change to Allegro. So let me get that in there. Double click. All right. And I now see that there's also some rehearsal numbers placed at semi-regular intervals here. It looks like every 4 bars after you get to bar 5. So there's not an automatic way to add rehearsal marks in that particular way. But I also noticed those aren't really rehearsal marks. Those are measure numbers. So what I can do is tell it to create measure numbers every 4 measures. I don't know if there's a way to start it there. Let me just enter the notes first, and then I'm going to come back and look at measure numbers, okay? I've got the basics set up here for this first line of music. I'm ready to start doing it now. So let me scroll this guy to where I can see a little better that whole first line. And now I come back. Oh, scroll it back down. All right. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start entering these notes now. And as you all know, if you've watched these before, I use keyboard shortcuts when at all possible. So N for note entry mode. And I'm just going to start typing 6 for half note. Okay, so now here's the deal. I don't read alto clef very well at all. So under normal circumstances, I would be typing letter names. I'm kind of tempted to actually use mouse input here, only because then that saves me the embarrassment of not remembering what these pitches are. So I think I'm going to do that at least some, but I think I'm going to use keyboard also at some places. We'll see how this all works. So I've got my half note, and I know that's an E, I know that's a C. And then I can enter a quarter note rest, 5 for quarter note, 0 for rest, and then back to the E. At this point, I'm knowing these notes. That's an F. Oops, I wanted that to be a half note. I forgot to change to half note first. That's okay. W will double the length. W, double. Oh man, I hadn't even thought of that before. Wow. Okay, W doubles the length of the most recently entered note. So there's that, and now it's set to half note, so I can enter my D, quarter note rest, quarter note D, and then some half notes. That's E, F, and I think that's A, right? Okay, so I'm pretty good at relativistic thinking here. And then I need a whole note. Oh, wow, look at this. There's the time signature and bar line change in the middle of the measure. No problem, we'll deal with it. I hadn't noticed that before though. So 7, oh, I want to call that an F sharp, but I know that's not true. It's going to be a G sharp. So it's a G sharp tied to a quarter note. So 5 tie. All right. So now here's the deal. We now have this situation that I forgot, that I didn't notice before, that the time signature change really happens in the middle of this measure. So I was a little premature in adding this. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to delete this. I'll delete that too. What I need to do is split the measure here. In other words, I'm going to create essentially a little, this is going to be a 5/4 measure, and this is going to be a 1/4 measure essentially, followed by 4/4 after that. So in order to make that happen, actually, I do want the 4/4 back now that I think about it. So I'm going to add that 4/4 back. All right, so what I want to do is split the measure right here. That's what's going to give me, no, I don't want that there. So I'm sorry, I'm thinking aloud, but that's okay. You get to see the process. I'm going to select this and split the measure first, and then I'll start thinking about time signatures. So under Tools, Measure, Split Measure. All right, so now I have this split measure here. And notice that it's showing this little minus here, showing that that measure is irregular. It's got fewer than the right number of beats. It actually only has 1 beat in it. And that's okay. Let me enter my note there. And what is that? That's probably an E. Beautiful. Okay, so I've got my note there, but I really want the time signature to be 4/4 here, right? So I have a feeling if I change the time signature to 4/4, I'm probably going to end up getting a full measure of 4/4 here, and I'll have to shorten it again. I'm not sure. I'm also, since I've never done this before, I'm also a little scared, and I feel like right now is a fine time to save my work. So, projects, Telemon. All right. So, all right, Marcus. If I have a bass clef, 1 note lower. Yeah, and I have my tricks for thinking about viola alto clef as well. One of these days I'll just spend enough time with it that I really get comfortable with it, but mostly I think relatively, and I do okay. All right, so let's see what happens if I drag the 4/4 right here. It's either gonna do exactly what I want, or it's gonna turn this into a full 4/4 measure. It turned it into a full 4/4 measure. That's okay. I'm going to just delete these extra beats. So now this is another new MuseScore 3 feature. I select those and then Control Delete. Boom, they're gone. So there is my measure. It shows it starting at 4/4 here, but that first measure of 4/4 only has 1 beat. Now I can go add my double bar again. Click, double click, and I can add my tempo marking back. I deleted the tempo marking only because I knew it was going to get all moved around with everything. So, was it Allegro? Yeah. Okay. So, at this point, now I've done a lot of setup to get these things. And notice I didn't enter my articulations. I didn't enter my dynamics yet. When I'm working in MuseScore, entering a lot of notes, sometimes I find it most effective to enter the notes first. By the way, I'm going to say goodbye to my little face here because it's probably covering up the screen for some of you. So there we go. So now you can see what's in the corner of what I'm doing here because that was probably annoying. Now I kind of decide, do I want to keep entering notes or do I want to go back and start entering markings? And to be honest, I don't have one way of doing things. But I will say that what I tend to find to be the case is the denser the music is in terms of the number of markings, the more inclined I am to enter them as I go. The sparser those markings are, the more inclined I am to just say, you know what, let me just enter the notes. And especially, like, look at these notes. Look. This I got all these quarter notes in a row, all these quarter notes in a row. This feels like these notes are gonna enter so fast that I don't want to stop to do anything else. So I think I'm just gonna enter like let's see, is there another double bar coming up, a place to stop? I mean, I could just enter all the way up to 31 here, probably in like no time at all. So I kind of think I'm just going to do that. The other thing I think I'm going to do, though, as I do it, is I'm going to switch to continuous view. By switching to continuous view, let me, how did I have this? There we go, this will do it. By switching to continuous view, it'll just let me keep entering notes left to right without continuing to move across the page. And I think that's going to be most efficient. I know some people like to set up their scores with the line breaks in the same place, and that helps them keep their place. There's no right or wrong about it, but I think this is how I'm going to do it anyhow. So, I'm going to start entering some quarter notes now, and this is going to go pretty darn quickly. Once I realize that that note is, I think, a C, I have my quarter note selected, C, 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 and then this is an E, but down the octave, so control down, E, 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 6, E, 5, C, 5, A. Yeah, I'm doing an okay job at reading this. And then back to... Now, see, at this point, if I wanted to demo, like, oh, this is how cool MuseScore is, I would like say, look at that. These measures here, it's the same thing, kind of, for 3 measures, and I could, use copy and paste. All right, so there you go, copy and paste. Realistically, is stopping to realize that really doing me any favors? I don't know. But if it's a longer passage and more complicated, this took me, 2 seconds to enter? Really, I mean, maybe 5 seconds to enter. That copy and paste didn't really save me time, but I'm looking at some figures here, and I'm going to show you some stuff there. So let me keep going. So now here's where, all right, I am at this point here. I'm here. So then I have a half note C, and just keeping track of where you are is like perhaps a little bit of a chore. And there was an experimental feature that was developed for MuseScore that was a PDF, not exactly an import facility. What was it called? OMR, Optical Musical Recognition. And all it did was basically look at the structure of the PDF file and insert bar lines for you, and then try to keep that window in sync with your PDF. It would show you your PDF and then show you your score, and then as you moved as you moved the score, it would move the PDF and so forth. It kind of worked, but kind of didn't, and someday that will be finished and will be a nice little feature to have to help with this process. But for now, I'm just going to depend on my own knowledge to help me keep track of where I am. So anyhow, I know I'm pointing at the screen. You can't see that. I am right here, and I need another C, but an octave higher. All right, so now I'm at measure 13, and I can look at the status bar to make sure I really am in measure 13. By the way, the measure numbers that show in the status bar will sometimes be off by 1 if there's a pickup, so you'll have to pay attention to that. But usually, well, the measure numbers here may or may not reflect that. So I'm now going to enter what I see in measure 13, but I'm only going to do that bar, because I do want to talk about another potentially time-saving feature. So let me move this guy out of the way. I have eighth notes, and those are A, right? A. So now that I've entered some eighth notes, I can see that the beaming is not the way Telemann's editor, Robert Brown, who did the arrangement. So Telemann, who knows how Telemann actually wrote his eighth notes? It's not that crucial that you copy this exactly, but if you want to, I want to show you how to make sure you just do that, because I don't want to have to do that like override that for every single eighth note. You can do that, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to get out of note entry mode, and I'm going to right click the 4/4 and time signature properties, and here I can just break my eighth notes. Boom. And that will basically change the defaults. So now my eighth notes are there. And now I'm going to go and enter these 4 quarter notes, which I believe are G's. And the reason I'm stopping to do that is this rhythm now changing back and forth between eighth notes and quarter notes keeps happening over and over for the next few bars. And I could probably enter that by hand just as fast as what I'm going to show you, but I'm going to show you this anyhow because it's useful. I can select that and then press R to repeat it. And how many of them are there? There's that one extra repeat, and then there's a second one, and then there's a third one, a fourth one, and a fifth one, and a sixth one. So I've done one. I'm going to do 5 more if I counted correctly. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I've counted that right. Who knows? All right, so I go back to the first one, and I'm going to show you that you can use this thing called repitch mode to perhaps speed things up, because it allows you to not have to keep changing the durations. Here, the duration change is so trivial. It's a whole measure of eighth, whole measure of quarter notes. Doesn't really save you much time to do what I'm about to do. But in more complicated rhythms, this could be a big deal. So this is measure 15, measure 16, 13, 14, 15. Okay, I'm off, and that's because of that split measure. There you go. That's because of that split measure. Threw off my numbering. So anyhow, I know where I'm at. I'm right here. This is the first measure of eighths, the first measure of quarter notes, and now I'm on this next one. And so all I want to do is change the pitches here while keeping my existing rhythms. So I'm going to go to note input mode, but I'm going to go to this special version called repitch mode. In repitch mode, I don't mess with rhythms at all. I just type pitches. So, and it's just going to keep the existing rhythms. So I want G, 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 A, F, 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 E, 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 C, A, up an octave, A, G, 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 F, 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 E, 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 E. Well, there you go. So that's kind of time saving, right? I didn't have to think about the rhythms. But now I need to go back to regular note input mode to enter some more notes now, because now it's going to be a whole bunch of eighths and the rhythms keep changing. So anyhow, that was kind of fun. E, 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 D, 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 C, 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 C. I swear I wrote a piece just like this when I was 6 years old, but you know, this is a viola part. This isn't like the actual main thing. But I remember my first song. Ba-do-da-dum, 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 ba-boo-ba-dum, 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 bum 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 ba-do-dum. Something very much like that. My first song, which I wrote when I was 6 years old. Somewhere I've got the sheet music that I wrote back then. Anyhow, this is reminding me of that. This is awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I said I was going to go up to measure 31. So I got 2 more measures, quarter notes, C, C, D, D, C, and then eighths, A, 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 A. All right. And okay, so that's only, I've obviously got to add some more measures too. Let me just point out, yeah, I can add measures with Control B one at a time, or I could like say, oh, I need a whole lot more measures. I don't want to do math right now. I'm a math person, but I don't feel like subtracting and adding. I'm just going to go, oops, maybe click in the score first and then go. So I just added a bunch of measures. All right, at this point, I want to stop and deal with some of those markings, okay? So I am going to come back to the beginning of the score. I pressed home, and I'm going to go back and start entering some markings. So I think I'm going to look at dynamic markings first because there's fewer of them. And I want to enter markings of the same type together, I think, here, because then I can just deal with the one palette at a time. So I got a fortissimo here. I got a forte here. And okay, so MF here, And now here's where I do kind of wish I had the same layout there so I could find this, but I can see where that is. That's if I had the measure numbers in now, I think that would make me happier. So I think as soon as I'm done with the dynamics, I'm going to go get the measure numbers in. But that's like shortly before where I stopped. It's right here, right? Yeah. Nope, it's right where the long stream of eighth notes is. There we go. It's right here. So I'm scrolling up. That for some reason doesn't show on my nice little keyboard thing that shows clicks and so forth, but I'm using the scroll wheel, 2-finger swipe. All right, so at the beginning of those eighth notes, I have an MF, and then I have a crescendo, but that's not with dynamics. That's going to be with the lines, so I will deal with that separately. At 2 measures later, I have a fortissimo. And then starting on those eighth notes, I have another MF. And then, this is where I stopped. All right, so I want to get that crescendo line in there. And actually, so the last couple days, actually the last week or so, I've been on a tear of like fixing bugs that were affecting me personally. And I was working on some music with lyrics. And so I ended up fixing a bunch of issues having to do with lyrics over the last week. That'll be in the next update. Right now, the next issue that I wanted to fix is going to have to do with exactly what I'm about to do. I want to enter now the crescendo line right here. So if I go to the lines palette and enter a crescendo line there, these don't quite line up, right? They're a little bit off. They really should be aligned by default. I thought we had code to do that. No, it's very likely that I messed it up myself, because what I did is I changed things so that if you manually adjust a dynamic on the same, let me reset the position of that. If I delete this and put this here, notice how this guy moved over to make room, and I made it so that if I manually adjust one, they adjust together. And it's possible that my code to do that somehow messed up the alignment of this. I don't really know that. Let me undo those changes. Get back to where I was. All right, so this alignment is just ever so slightly off. That bugs me, but I can go to the inspector here, and I should be able to just increase the offset until it looks aligned, and that's going to do it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Is that totally aligned? Maybe if I went with 3. So I don't like to do things with the mouse if I can all avoid it. But that alignment should have happened automatically, and that's on my to-do list for today. And then here's my little trick for checking the alignment there. That's a nice little trick for checking that. All right, that looks good. Could you see what I did? No, you can't even see. I'm shift dragging to select which creates like a little selection region, but I can just use that to give me a little alignment marker. Okay, so I've got those in there. This crescendo line really, it doesn't matter. It should probably go all the way to the fortissimo. So I'm going to go ahead and extend it with shift right until I reach the end of this. And notice how that once I extended it there, it tried to align it with the forte. I'm actually going to stop short of that because the alignment's off. I'm just going to leave it as is, I think. But now I'm going to take this, and I don't really want to see those dotted lines. I mean, maybe I do, but I'm just going to show you how to mimic what we see here. So I'll uncheck the line visible, and it grays it out on screen. It won't appear in the PDF. There is a bug where some of these things that gray out on screen still continue to show in the PDF, but I think those bugs are all fixed for the next update. I think, excuse me, I think that one actually works. All right, MuseScore seems to number the measures differently from the score. Right, so yeah, this is because of the measure I divided. Indeed, it's exactly because of that, and I want to fix that now because it is kind of making it hard for me to keep my place. The measure I divided threw off the measure numbering. So that's easy to fix. And also pickup measures can do the same thing. But I can tell this measure to exclude from the measure count. So I'm going to do that here. Exclude from measure count. and now it's excluded. So what I think I want to do, I want to first see, because to be honest, I can't remember. I know I can, because these measures are numbered every 4 bars. Is it really literally every 4? Nope. It gets off right here. There's 3 bars. So I don't even want to try to use that feature. I'm just going to manually add my measure numbers. So what I want to do is click the measures where I want a measure number to appear, and I'm going to tell it to always show the measure number. Always show. And now I get my 5. Now, do I want the 5 big and in a circle like that? I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Let me show you how to do that, though. So let me make this guy a little wider. Okay. So here in the inspector, you can see it's set to no frame. So I clicked first the measure number, and now I can tell it I want a circle frame. If I wanted to make the thing bigger, I could also make it bigger here. I'm not going to. But what I am going to do is say set as style. Now all the measure numbers will have those circles. So what I can just do now is to every measure number where I want it, I can just do the same thing of measure properties, always show. I'm not thrilled that I have to do this manually. It kind of makes me want to do something different. And actually there is a way to do this. I could make these be rehearsal marks, and then I can make the rehearsal marks look like that. And the rehearsal marks can be set to automatically inherit measure numbers. Some people might find that a more easier way of doing things. I don't know. I've already started doing it this way, so I'm just going to keep doing it this way. Measure 13. I'm wishing at this point there was a shortcut for this particular thing. What I can do, I'll tell you what I can do. Apply, and then I can just keep moving. So that was measure 13, and then 14, 15, 16, 17. This is okay. Always show. And then I gotta remember to hit apply, and that's what I don't like. So I like about this, but keep going to 21. I'm hoping that these measure numbers are showing me my measure numbers, not the, and are not going to be off by 1 now. I think I'm going to, well, I'm almost done. So set to always show. And then 29. All right. Oops, that was control mouse wheel. I meant to do shift mouse, shift wheel. 17, 21, good. It's doing what I want. Oops, scrolling the wrong window now. So there's my measure numbers, 21, 25, and then 29, right where I want it. Good. So the only thing I'm missing now, I think, are the articulations, and these are actually bow markings. If I'm not mistaken, these bow markings are penciled in. I'm not entirely, yeah, this clearly looks, well, it's hard to say for sure. But that would be typical, right? Bow markings are often not printed in string music and for orchestral music, because then it's assumed that the section leader is going to decide on the bowings and share them with everyone. That's kind of often the aesthetic here. And I have a feeling that one reason for this whole exercise, the whole reason they wanted this music entered, was so they could enter in new bow markings. I don't really know. But let's just show you this. I'm going to control click the notes, because these are all down bows. No, those are up bows. Those are all up bows. Okay. Obviously I don't play a stringed instrument, or I would just know that right off, but I have to think about it. No, but those are up bow markings. So I just selected those, and then I can go to articulations and double click the up bow mark, which is over here, up bow. All right, now notice when I did that, autoplace moved the tempo marking for me. That's fine. I guess I'm glad that it moved it for me. However, there's probably a better solution, which is just to move that tempo marking to the side. So I'm going to just do that. As I move it to the side, boom, it just falls down where it needs to be. So there you go. I also noticed these up bow markings are considerably further from the note than I expect them to be. I'm not sure why that's the case. Most articulations show closer. I think maybe it's so that they align. Let me see if I put one here. Actually, let me just change the pitch of this note. Yeah, okay, I guess that's the deal. They are designed to align at some convenient distance above the staff. I guess that's how these are set to do, and maybe that's common. Anyhow, there's my bow markings for that first one, and then I can see right before measure 13 I need another one, so I think I'll just go through and hit them in individually. Any more? One right before measure 31. So, is it literally the last eighth? I don't think so. No, it's at the beginning of that measure. Up. So there's ways. If I decided, you know what, that's too high. That's just too high. There are settings for this. Notice that it's the anchor says above staff. That's what's making them all show kind of at a consistent height. So even as I move the height of this note, whoops. Oh yeah, okay. It moves. It's at a consistent height until it needs to move out of the way of something, and then it starts pushing up. But this space, that's too big. There's like an issue there that someone needs to deal with, and I have a feeling that is going to end up being me. But if you wanted to, if you, instead of above staff, you set it to above chord, that definitely just moves them in closer. And so if I want, I can select all of these at once. I can say select all similar and set them to above chord. The bow markings, I guess, default, different articulations default different ways. So now all my bow markings are now going to be in tighter. And, maybe that's what you want, maybe that's not. But in any case, that's how you can do it. I just selected them all and then set them to above chord instead of above staff. And that brings them in tight rather than trying to put them all in a line together. Anyhow, looking ahead, I don't really see anything new coming up, right? It's all more of the same. The only thing that was, okay, there's a down bow and a different accent. But it's all more of the same kind of stuff. So I kind of feel like I've showed you what I need to show you. There was an actual hairpin here coming up in a few measures, but I would just show you that if I want one here, I can select the notes I want it to appear on and use the shortcut, the less than sign, which looks exactly like a hairpin. All right. And I notice that this isn't aligned either, which is interesting to me. But if I actually get it on the same dynamic, it is. So actually, it's not just the crescendo lines. It's even regular hairpins are just on a different line from dynamic. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, that's my project for the afternoon. I had already decided was to look at the alignment of these things. But normally, if what you would do is you would enter this hairpin starting on the same note as the dynamic, and then it will automatically adjust everything to make them align. So anyhow, that's how that's designed to work. So that's kind of the process, and you keep at it. I'm going to finish this kind of on my own time now, because I want to get the job done and get it to the people who need it. So I've been talking through this process, and I only got 30 measures done in 45 minutes here. But I guarantee you, if I wasn't talking, this whole thing would have been done in like 15 minutes, right? I mean, I could have just totally just plowed right through that thing. So yeah, PDF import is would be nice if it worked better. If you're comfortable experimenting with software, Autoverus is free and open source. You can download it and play with it and see how it works for you. There's third-party programs you can buy that will do PDF import. They all create music XML files, which then you import into MuseScore. But then you're going to spend some time fixing things up because it's not going to get some things right. I am not convinced that it's necessarily faster to import things from the PDF and then fix them up compared to just entering the notes directly, especially on something this simple. Now, something this simple, maybe the PDF importer makes fewer things that need fixing up, But I also can tell you that these notes enter so fast because there's so much repetition, so much simplicity of rhythms. It is not going to take much time at all to finish entering this. So that's what I'm got for you today, and I appreciate the comments. Next week, let me tell you about next week. I think what I want to do is I'm going to bite the bullet here, and we're just going to really get inside automatic placement, because I know this is it's a hot button topic for some people. I mean, it's a wonderful feature. It does a lot of great things as far as like if I raise this up, look at that. The articulation moves. And if I enter some text on this note, the text moved, right, to stay out of the way of everything. That's a wonderful thing. And when it's doing what it's designed to do, it's seamless, it stays out of your way, and everything just works. And it's really, really nice for those cases. But then there's the cases where, for whatever reason, it's not doing what you wanted. Like this case here. We saw by default, it just pushed that up, and maybe that's not what you wanted. Well, as you could see, I was able to easily get around it just by moving that tempo marking to the side. I didn't have to disable it or anything. But there's definitely times when you might need to disable it, and there's times when you might be tempted to think, I just want to turn it off completely, right? I know there's people out there saying that because we get those requests. I really think that's going to be counterproductive, but I'll tell you what, next week I'm going to build a version of MuseScore that has automatic placement turned off. I can't turn it off totally, completely, necessarily, easily, but I know a simple trick I can do that will make it mostly be turned off. And then I want to play with it. We're going to play with it and see how it compares and what happens. What happens if it were turned off completely. I would love it if people who have scores would maybe leave me a comment here, send me a message, send me an email, Marc with a C at musescore.com. Send me a score that you think, boy, this is one that I've been struggling with. Auto placement seems like it's getting in my way. And yeah, let's actually look at this next week. So I'm going to get some scores that I find from people who have posted on forums and so forth with questions about this. And yeah, we'll learn together, and hopefully I'll get to show you that disabling it completely doesn't really do the job as well as just simple little things like what I did here, because then you get to enjoy it everywhere else, but then just move things that need moving. And if okay, let me just show you one other example. I'm going to reset that. What if you decided, you know what, I want the tempo marking below the articulation? I mean, that's wrong by any standard of engraving. But if you decide what you want, you can disable auto placement for that tempo marking, and then now you get to move it yourself. I think what's probably going to be better is to disable it for the articulation. That way the the tempo marking is still where you want, but now I can just move the articulation above it. I didn't have to disable it globally. I just had to fix that one little thing. I think most of the times when people are having problems with auto placement, really just getting inside how it works and seeing how these sorts of things work is going to make you happy. So anyhow, that's going to be the topic for next week, and I look forward to it and would love it. I'm going to try to let people know who have expressed concerns about this. So I expect to get some comments and some people expressing some opinions during the chat, and I look forward to engaging with it because I don't know, I'm fine with that. So I will get back to this on my own and leave the cafe for now, and be back next week, and we'll talk about automatic placement. And thanks everyone for tuning in.